It was. We actually had a 12-pack, and I handed them out. Well, 11 of them. Who got a beer? Good. Free beer, right? Or free IPA in this case. Let's go ahead and get started. I look like I got a full crowd, so I think this is the second largest audience I've talked to, and the other audience was forced there by their bosses. So I think you guys are actually the winners. I've given this presentation about 5 or 6 times over the year, but I've updated it for you guys because I think it's really important that we talk about specific things, important things, right? So first, I want to talk about myself. That's important. I go by Herlo most of the time. If you want to call me by Herlo, feel free. Buy me a beer, whatever. People online call me Herlo. I don't know why. So for me, I used to work at a little company called Big Planet, which was bought by a bigger company called New Skin. Some of you may have heard of them back in 1998. This is where I started my career. It's a simple thing. In 2000, I had a little boy. His name's Sean. He's 14. He'll be here tomorrow, or tonight, actually. And in 2006, I started a little organization called the Utah Open Source. Yeah. Woo! Thanks, Doran, for the donation to the cause there. And then in 2007, I got involved in Fedora. Nothing really big about this. In 2008, my first time at scale. So I've been here 8 years now. How many of you guys can say that? Cool, I love it. How many of you been here, this is your first year? Welcome, this is great. I love seeing lots of new people, and it's fun for me too. In 2010, I started taking over the Utah Python user group, and I had another kid. He's now 4. He drives me nuts. His name's AJ, and they're both great, and I love them. And in 2012, I started working at the Linux Foundation. Been there 2.5 years. I love working there. It's it's my favorite job I ever had. I work from home, so it's something fun for me. I started a new little user group called Uptime SLC. It's just a little thing where we're doing some tech group, and it's basically just kind of the same concept, but it's over a 3-month arc, and instead of doing like the boring conversations about stuff you aren't interested in, we're going to try to dive into things. Just interesting stuff about me, nothing crazy. But I really, really like beer, especially IPAs. I brought some for everybody. Hopefully some of you got some. I'm sorry that if you didn't get one, come down to the bar later and buy yourself one. So IPAs are like among my favorite things. And so actually what we're going to talk about today is about IPAs, and we'll throw a little bit of free IPA in there. So to start off with, I couldn't find this beer today, but my favorite beer is this seasonal beer from a brewery called Deschutes up in Oregon. It's called Red Chair. Anybody ever had it? Yeah, it's a really, it's like I said, it's one of my favorites, and I really like it because it's just kind of a smooth beer. It's really crisp and easy to drink. I can spend an hour, 2 hours drinking a 6-pack, and then take a nap. So this is probably my favorite beer. Now we're going to talk about free IPA, like I mentioned. So why free IPA, right? What's so important about free IPA? Why is everyone here? Because it's a pretty big crowd. Anybody have any thoughts? Back. Uh-huh. It's a what? It's a monster and it costs a lot of money for free IPA? Oh, good. Not free for you. Okay. So let's talk about maybe why we would consider this. I have no idea where this shirt was sold. I found it on Google image search. I was the other day just looking around, and this is what I found. And I actually haven't ever put this on my presentation before, so this is the first time anyone got to see it. I'm thankful for the laugh. But really, this is why, right? Because we want to open source all the things. If you're using Active Directory today, that's great, but it buggles with some stuff. It screws up LDAP. It screws up other things, makes it difficult to use. It's not a bad product. I think Active Directory is a great product overall. But what FreeIPA can do for you is exactly the same thing. It also can integrate with an Active Directory server and do syncing for you and replication. So if you're authenticating Linux systems, you can authenticate them against FreeIPA and replicate them to Active Directory and back. So it can be, yes, absolutely. Or it can be standalone on it, and that's great, yes. It can do either. Yep. It can replace Active Directory fully because it is totally replicatable, it's totally implementable, and it's really easy to do so. Or you can integrate it and use it with Active Directory for those who are Windows people, and they're going to want that. It's MIT, but you can integrate with either. So if you're asking about the KDC, and we'll talk about that a little bit. No problem. I don't know Vintella. Yeah, I cannot address that one specifically. Let's hold off on questions so I can go through this, and we can talk about more at the end. So let's start off with IPAs again, right? Because we're really not talking about FreeIPA, we're talking about beer. So I read a few articles, and I was really impressed by these articles about how in the early 1800s, and even a little bit before that, this Hodgson group here and the Bow distributors, who George Hodgson was a part of, distributed the first IPAs. And they basically bottled them because beer would spoil. And they would put them in these beer containers and send it across from Britain to India. And it turned out that's a farce. If you didn't know that's a farce, it totally is. Beer can go for 4 or 5 months without spoiling pretty easily. Any lager or porter can do it. There were ways to package it easier, make it better that way. Really what they were doing was they were advertising a new type of beer, one that was hoppy, more bitter, and something that would cool you off, if you will. Compared to a lager or a pilsner, sometimes you might notice the malty versus the hoppy in it actually is something like that. So they actually found the first term of the use, India Pale Ale, in the Sydney Gazette in Australia, not in India, about India Pale Ale. You can look up the Wikipedia article. These links at the bottom do reference specific things, so if you're interested in them. And my slides will be up online tonight. So let's talk about parts of the IPA server. First off, how many of you guys heard of 389 directory server? Okay, we don't use openssl, we use 389ds. It's not that bad, but yeah.
389 is derivative of like Netscape.
Sort of, yes. Yeah. It comes from the Fedora directory server and RHEL directory server. That's where those were originally. So yeah. We use a certificate system called dogtag. How many of you guys have certmonger before? You'll be very comfortable with this. Everyone's using Apache. I'm not even going to talk about it. And if you want DNS, you can provide that with your identity management server, so we provide binds. It uses LDAP bindings to do the work, though you can do slaving if you want, and other things, and it's very flexible that way. Core of FreeIPA is this piece right here. The System Security Services, daemon or sssd. They've done a ton of work to integrate this and make it work on all Linux systems. What it provides you is similar things to the services like PAM, SSH, and sudo. Excuse me, my beer. Is that me? I will stop trying to tap myself. I don't know what I'm hitting. But if you think about it from that perspective, this is how we get centralized authentication, centralized HBAC rules, centralized RBAC, and other types of rules, sudo rules, PAM rules, whatever. And we can manage them within FreeIPA. Kerberos, we mentioned MIT Kerberos. Who was asking about that earlier? That's what we're going to be using, and that's what it uses. If you want to use it with Heimdall, you'd have to reconfigure it, I believe. So, yeah, recompile. Well, just reconfigure FreeIPA to work with Heimdall because it would need some new libraries. So probably recompiling some things, but not everything. And there's glue. So they have a nice UI, which I'll show you. A command line interface, which I will also show you. And APIs with bindings like from Python. I think there's a Ruby binding now. And, of course, the backend plugins that they have for other things that you can do. So it looks like this when you... My mouse is in the way. There. Anybody curious about any of this? Any questions? Okay. How's them beers? Are they gone? Try harder. It's a JSON API, and it has XML RPC as well. So you can do either. And they actually document that. It says right here JSON RPC, if you can see it. It's really close, really small, yeah. That I know of, no, but that doesn't mean that I know the answer to that question. So he asked, if there's a way to limit the API in some way with RBAC or something like that, and I don't know that answer. They asked me to repeat the question, just to be clear. Another one of my favorite IPAs, if you ever come to Utah, this is the first Utah beer I introduced, I believe, is the Epic Brewing Company. They're actually now based out of Colorado, but they started in Utah. And the Hopulent IPA is a doubly hopped IPA. It's really, really tasty. If you get a chance to get an Epic beer, this is the one I would recommend. There's also one that's called the Brainless series. How many of you guys have ever been drunk on wine? Okay, good. Because it's fun this way, right? A Hopulent, the Brainless IPA gives you this drunk of beer and drunk of wine kind of feel, and you get kind of what they call brainless. It's really, really nice. So between the Hopulent and the Brainless, those are the two I like from Epic. If you're going to drink a comfortable beer, this one's really nice. It's really crisp. It's very hoppy. So you're gonna like that beer. So back to FreeIPA for a moment. Let's talk some terminology because it's important to know what we're talking about. Wait, beer. So the double IPA from Squatter's another one from Utah. You can find it here. I've seen it. It's called Hop Rising. It is among my favorite beers again, which all the IPAs really are. But this one is really, really strong, and it's got a 9% ABV. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, try that. Nope. Okay, I'll hold it in my hand. Hold it in my hand. See if it works. Okay. This one I can get them for $3.50 a bottle. It's the smaller bottle like this one. The previous one was actually a bigger bottle, like the 1 liter or whatever they call them. Remember the size. So this one's really, really tasty, and it's really, really hoppy, but it's also got a nice kick in terms of alcohol. So if you want a quick drunk, that's a great one. So let's talk about identity first. So the concept of identity is, hey, look, you are who you say you are, and we can guarantee that. We can do that with, we can enable single sign-on to things, which is a nice way to go. SAML's a good example. We can actually implement SAML functionality. So if you're interested in stuff like that, you can make that work with IPA. FreeIPA, that is. Other system services and applications can also identify themselves and authenticate with either Kerberos, certificate management, or other ways you might be able to implement via LDAP. The Uinta Brewery is also a great brewery in Salt Lake. Again, I'm from Utah, so I'm going to focus on a few of those, but I have got others. This is a session IPA. How many know what a session IPA is? I knew John would know. Yeah, so a session IPA is back when they used to actually drink on the job and make bullets and stuff. Back in 1700, 1800. They would drink a couple of these beers, and they would be lower alcohol. So a session usually is a 4% or lower beer. And the idea is that you don't get too drunk, or the British like to call pissed, right? You don't get too pissed while you're working. So they made those as well. Next thing, policy. We can define Kerberos authentication policies or other RBAC policies. We can manage sudo, SE Linux, DNS rules, or AutoFS to enable your systems to come online and be able to authenticate automatically, do sudo automatically, those sorts of things. Everybody's understanding all of this? It's pretty basic stuff, right? Okay. Oh, look. How many of you had one of those today?
How many have been to Brewing?
I have not, and I would love to go. Where is it? In Escondido, right?
They have 3 locations now. They have 2 restaurants/breweries and a tasting.
Okay. Who's taking me tomorrow?
There's 1 restaurant really close to the airport, like maybe 20, 30 minutes walk.
Who's taking me tomorrow?
Take the train.
Take the train?
Down, take the bus to the airport, walk from the airport to the tasting.
Okay, now I know. We can go to the train, to the bus, to the airport, and then walk. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to try that. I do have my 14-year-old with me starting tonight, so he doesn't drink beer yet. I'm not sure he ever will, but if he does, then we can go again.
I think he's allowed in the tasting room and the restaurant. He's definitely allowed in the restaurant.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try the restaurant maybe. At least I can drink and he can enjoy a meal. So this one's great. It's the best-selling IPA as far as they advertise. I don't know how true that is, but in the country. And possibly the world. Moving on. last component of IPA, which is auditing. This is where we do mutual trust with other identity servers, like Active Directory, or you can do replication with your own, and they use Kerberos to do that. They actually talk Kerberos. They authenticate with each other. Things like when I did deploys for customers here and there, what I've run into is if your time is off, your replication fails, and they don't know why. So you have to make sure you use NTP, for instance, which is also provided from IPA. So you can use an NTP server there as well, or set up your own. What are the limitations on Kerberos?
5 minutes.
There you know. Yeah, I think it was like he was only off for like 7 minutes, and he was having problems. Yeah, I imagine so. I'm not arguing that. I like to be within a few seconds. Yeah. So it's really important to keep your time. This is one of John's favorite beers, right, John? Dogfish Head. Anybody had a Dogfish Head before? Story behind this one, a few of you, that's good. Story behind this one for me, when I was a baby IPA drinker, what was that, like 5 years ago, John? We were in Raleigh, North Carolina, and John and I were sitting at this bar with a few other Fedorans, because that's what we do, we work on the Fedora project. And we were having beer because, well, it was late at night, and that's what you do when you're a nerd and Hackon's projects is you drink beer. Well, unless you don't drink beer, you drink other stuff, caffeine maybe. We were having a beer, and I could not finish this beer. John looks at me and he goes, "You can't finish that beer?" He picks up the beer and he goes, and it was about that much, just in one gulp. And I said, "I want to be like him." And I'm working on it because I can drink this one now without having a problem finishing it. Yeah, so it's a good beer. Sorry? I cannot drink the 90s yet. I know you can. Yeah. Yeah, I saw the 120 the other day, and I was like, oh. So it's actually they boil it for 60 minutes, and they take and put more and more hops in as they build it up. So for that, every minute or more is what it says. It's hopped every minute or more. So it's a lot of hops. My screen cut that off. Is FreeIPA for you is what it's supposed to say. I don't know why it cut that off, probably because I only have 1024 by 768. Is FreeIPA faux? Oh, good. At least ask the questions. Hey, look, it fixed it. Do you have more than 2 administrators? Do you manage more than 7 Linux systems? Do you want powerful SSL? You can ask all these questions. I'm not going to go through them all. Are you currently stuck with Active Directory? Right? If you answered one of these questions, yes, drink a beer, and it's for you. Right? I thought so. FreeIPA is for you. You should try it out. You should definitely get it into your systems, inside your environment, and try to at least sync it with Active Directory if you can't do anything else. So the last one that I think I have listed here, oh no, I have one more. The Wood Age Double IPA from Great Divide. This is actually their anniversary Wood Age that they do every year, based on their Denver Pale Ale that they make. I had, I think, the 16th anniversary one time, and I want it again. They're like at the 18th anniversary or something now. It's really, really good. It's probably, it's got like oak and ash chips, I think, that they cook it with. And it smells really good when you smell it, and it's just an IPA, and it tastes amazing. And there's a lot to it. So they actually do this only once a year, and every year it's a little bit different. It's kind of neat, kind of fun to play with. Ooh, demo time.
I wish the Stone Grove Classic experience was yeah, you ran out of years.
Yeah.
And months.
12, 12, 12. It makes sense. I didn't know about that one.
It was released every year. 111, 222, 333.
Well, they should just start over with the 10, 10, 10, 11, 11, 11, 12, 12. So they did it, I guess. So let's do some demos. First off, I want to explain my environment so you guys know how it's going to look. I have Fedora VMs. No, I have a Fedora operating system that hosts as my host hypervisor. I use KVM and libvirt. When I did this demo originally, it did not work with Docker, and I was really trying hard to make it work with Docker. I think it works now, but I haven't updated it. So we're going to be using KVM and libvirt for that. And I'll be running CentOS 7, and we'll be implementing, I believe it's 3.3 of IPA. I might be able to get 4, so I'm going to try it for 3.3 right now, but We can look at 4 later if I have time. So the last beer that we're going to talk about is another local beer, but it's up north, Lagunitas IPA. When I was in San Jose for PyCon in 2012, I think I drank about a dozen of these in one night, starting about 2 in the afternoon until about midnight. So it wasn't like I was, plastered or anything, but it was comfy and nice. And I was hacking on Python, and life was good. So if you're interested in that one, that's a really nice one. It's really mellow, simple to drink, not too hoppy for those who don't like hops. This is a good one to try out, start with. Much like the Stone, actually. I got some beer left. Who's bored? Good. I win. So we're going to set up and install FreeIPA. It shouldn't take very long, like 10 minutes, maybe. We'll configure a FreeIPA client, and then we will configure a centralized sudo. So we'll work on both systems. We could do more. There's some other features that come in 4 that are really, really nice. Nathaniel McCallum wanted me to mention some new ones that are really, really nice, which are the OTP feature, the one-time password, and radius features that have just come into 4. So if you're interested in those, you can set those up, and they just work right out of the box. Those parts probably don't work with Active Directory. I don't know the answer, though.
Quick question. You mentioned
Sure.
sudo a few times. So in our enterprise, sudo is not permitted. It's been removed from all the machines.
Okay.
Can you decouple this and call another authentication mechanism for further escalation?
For using sudo or for using some other tool? Oh, yeah. So SSSD is the core tool. So as long as your product can talk to that core tool, or talk to SSSD, then it should be fine. And there are APIs for SSSD. So he asked if you could use something besides sudo because he's not allowed to do it at work. And so the answer to that question is, yeah, you can, as long as it works with SSSD. And that is actually the core piece. Every Linux system that you have must have SSSD, but it's pretty much available for every Linux system. If you don't have it, it usually is, yes. In fact, you'll find it on every Fedora and RHEL system I've ever run into since like before 4. I think 4 was like where it started, and like 4.4 or something. No, it was in 4, but it didn't work very well in 4 because I remember having to disable it. It was years ago though. Yeah.
Could you just piggyback an SS config?
Yes, you could.
Config to just connect to the
You absolutely could. You can authenticate. So his question was, can I just piggyback like Kerberos config or NSS config? And absolutely you can. In 3.0, that's actually what you had to do, is you had to configure NS switch and all the stuff to make it so that it would talk to the right libraries. But now they actually use SSSD libraries to do the work, and it's automatic. Yeah. But I actually use LDAP directly in a lot of ways. I wrote a sudo LDAP configuration before SSSD was working properly for what I needed. Oh yeah, you still have to talk to PAM, but you can get around it with that piece. Yeah, around yeah, right. And it's yeah. What was your question, John? Oh, you had your hand up.
Sudo strictly for local admin, or no sudo permitted on any machine in our enterprise at all? That wasn't my question. Oh, sorry. What do you want it for? Do you want it strictly for local admin type functions, or do you want it? Sudo doesn't give us the level of granularity we need, so we use a different tool that does real-time key launch, centralized real-time key launch. The only way that privilege elevation is allowed. So
Wow. Okay.
FreeIPA is a tool that we use. It has to work with that.
And you can write things like RBAC and HBAC rules that probably would accommodate those. Yeah. What's the tool? Okay. I've heard of it. I've not used it, though.
Well, I was wondering if REM-CPL would be applicable, and never mind.
I am so sorry about that. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I could just take it off, but they asked me to use it, so. So let's go ahead and install IPA server. Now, if you're on, it's going to be called IPA server or RHEL. If you're on Fedora, it'll be called FreeIPA server. So you just put free in front of it if you're using Fedora. Did the That is horrible. I can't do another one. Oh, there is. I'm going to use that. That's a good idea. That better? Oh, yeah. I can sing a song now. Hold on. I got to figure out this part, though. Yeah, I try that, too. There it goes. Why did it do that? You guys are awesome. Thank you for telling me to use the microphone. And if my network fails again, I'm going to be upset. It's on the network. Awesome. Okay, hold on. Enjoy your beer, because this might be a minute. I did a download only earlier, so it should work, and there it fails again. Okay, anybody want to come troubleshoot this with me? Let's find out if my DNS is wrong. I can, and I've done that before. Sure, we can take out the search. It won't make a difference, but I have to use the name servers my host uses? That's weird. When did that change? No, it doesn't do that. Here, we'll just use that one right there. It's hard to type with one hand, just so everyone knows. Can I have another beer, please? Someone can run to the Bevmo really quick and get me another beer. I do better with more beer. Hey, look, that works. Yay! I'll fix it on the other one in a sec. Okay. So I'm going to just do -y because I don't really want to wait. Yeah, and we're getting actually pretty good speed, and apparently I didn't do download only or I broke it. So let's log into the other one and do the same thing while we're waiting. So it might take 10 minutes to do this. I apologize. I usually prep them, and I thought I did, so that's my fault. Oh, look, it's already installed. Even better. All right, so we're going to do, I had all these notes for my IPA presentation about the history of IPA, so if you want any of these, I'll put them up on my GitHub where all this stuff is. In the meantime, I've got this really pretty presentation document that explains how to do all the commands, so we're going to use them. So we're going to run a setup DNS because that's what we want to do. For my demo, you don't have to use DNS. If you want to use external DNS, that's okay. Oh, and I need to install bind. That's the library that you need, and I did this on purpose. You need to install the bind 9db LDAP because if you're using DNS, it's going to require that so that it can actually talk to the LDAP server. So let's quickly install that. Luckily, that's a short little thing. If you're going to use DNS with it, you have to use LDAP, but you can use DNS externally. It's not a problem. You just have to maintain it separately. All right, so we're going to do a setup DNS with the switch. It's going to ask me some questions. The first thing is, hey, look, there's an existing bind configuration. Do you want to override it? Of course I do, because why wouldn't you? What could possibly go wrong? Exactly. So it's going to ask me my host name. It's ipa7.example.com. And for right now, I don't have that in my DNS resolution, so that's what it's complaining about. And then it asks me my domain name. Should be .example.com if you don't know that. And then it asks me a Kerberos realm name. I can define this as anything I like, usually in all uppercase characters. Commonly, it's your domain name in all uppercase, which is what we're going to use. You provide a directory manager password and an IPA admin password. You want to write these down. If you lose these passwords, you will not get into your IPA server anymore. And you will probably have to either reinstall or go figure out how to make LDAP know what the password is. Sure can. Yep. Let's do that. It is, and you can fix it. It's just a pain in the ass. Is that better? Is that good enough for whoever's sitting back there asking me that question to move my screen up? I can't move it to the top, but as I type it, it should come up so you can see it better. So I'm going to type manager 72, and I'm going to type that again. And then I'm going to type IPA admin 72 because I'm lazy. Does it look like it? He asked if it doesn't do any quality checking. No. It doesn't do any quality of password checking. You should be an admin and be smart about that. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying if you're a smart admin, you know how to make good passwords. Do you want to configure DNS forwarders? Yes, you do. If you're going to use this, you should use them. So we're going to use, what's the other one? I'm not doing that one because that's bad. This one. Yeah, they probably don't. That's okay. We'll just use that one and nothing else. If you want to blank, after that, you leave a blank line, you hit enter. Do you want to configure a reverse zone? Yes, you do. Why? Kerberos requires it, and it will not work if you do not have Kerberos working. Yes, and you have to have it to authorize your machines. That's correct. So we'll type yes and hit enter. Please specify the reverse zone. I'm hitting enter because that's the right one. If you don't know what reverse zones look like, go learn. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and configure the system with these things. This takes about 10 minutes to do. So while we're doing that, we're going to drink more beer. I'm going to wander down to the bar, come back. This won't take very long, actually. Your beer's broken? It's empty? Oh, mine still has a little. That's heaven. It supports multiple realms, and it supports that, absolutely. You do have to define the trusted realms. There's a trust functionality inside IPA that does that. So he asked if it supports cross-realm authentication. Yeah, I don't know the wording. I didn't quite hear you, so I just know sort of what that is. I've never done it. Honestly, unless you're doing another data center, you're not going to do another FreeIPA master install. You're going to do replicas. So the question was, can we take a text file and create this again? There might be one. I don't know of one. but honestly, it doesn't take very long. And then once it's up, you actually are going to set up a replica, which takes a GPG encrypted file that you create on the master. You put it on the replica, and then you tell it, hey, I'm a replica, and I'm talking to that server. That's as simple as it gets. And from that point, they're all masters. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there absolutely are command line switches for everything. So if you do want to do it that way, that's an option. Good point. Thank you for clarifying that. Anybody bored yet? Those of you who drink beer are still awake, right? Okay. Oh, look, he's thumbs up. Okay. This shouldn't take too much longer. I think we have like certificates, and then we have Kerberos, I think, to set up, and the web server, some simple stuff like that. Yeah, it actually installs all the pieces for you. When you run yum install IPA server, it installs every package you'll ever need, and it's like 200 packages, which is why I don't do it here. You can. You don't. I didn't include a CA in this. You can set up a CA. The master, I think, has them by default. Right, you get a CA with the master, but you don't have to put it on all the replicas. But you can use another CA. You don't have to use this one. I thought he was talking about replicas. I misunderstood the question, I think. I think they're persistent for the life, but they're Kerberos keys, so it's a key tab file essentially. Yeah. So it should be secure enough, if you will. Well, and then you'd have to regenerate those keys, but I think you can do that with there's a whole way to do that. Yeah, so I've actually run into that specifically where the key tab breaks. There's a command line tool to regenerate them, and it's really, really simple. So he's asking if the key tab expires, because he does it every 90 days, if he can regenerate them easily, and it is very easy to do. Mm-hmm. Every replica is essentially a master. So once you have a master and then another replica, and we had it with 5 replicas at one point. We now have it down to just 2 systems at the Linux Foundation, but we removed that because we were having trouble with. We had servers in China, and it was the Great Firewall of China was causing us lots of pain. So we removed a lot of that data, and we only have 2 now. But they're basically essentially masters. You do one, and it replicates to the other, and vice versa. It's not master slave. Yep, you can set up another one against that replica, and it should be fine. I will show you in a moment. Yeah, I have the firewall settings in the next piece. In my little document here. Yeah, these are the CentOS 6 ones if you really want to see them. So he's asking about firewall rules. I even have the CentOS 7 rules right there. So if you want them, that's what you have to open. For replication, there's one more, which is 7389. I don't know why they chose that port. So the question is there an easy way for a user to get an X509 certificate? If they have an access to the IPA server and have rights to do so, they can generate certificates on their own, yes. And I will actually show you where that is in a few minutes once this is up. Yeah, no problem. And there's a lot of pieces to this, so it does take a few minutes. Yes, Hearts. What are you gaining with FreeIPA over LDAP? You're gaining identity management, which is much more than just LDAP. So you're gaining certificate management, you're gaining Kerberos, you're gaining ability to do centralized authentication. You can do some of that with openLDAP, but you have to put all the pieces on the side. You have to actually put the glue together. This is all glued together for you. Yes. Oh, 2-factor authentication. We use 2-factor authentication at Linux Foundation for everything. And what we do is you can do one-time passwords and passwords together, and like your regular password together. So you have the one-time token and then your regular password, and you can integrate them together on FreeIPA directly. In 4.0, we'll have that feature. In 3, what we did is my boss, his name is Konstantin Rubitsev. He wrote a thing called TOTP CGI, which you can get off GitHub, and that's what we use for our second factor for most things. I'm sorry, he had a question first, and then I'll answer yours. Really good question, and we ran into this. So we ran into some problems where we were scaling out. We thought every zone should have one at first. And I don't know the answer for this question because it really depends on your environment. But what I would say is for about every 30 to 40 machines, you should probably, and if you have like bigger zones, you might have more than that, and that's okay. We have 200 machines, and I only run 2. Okay? So you probably ought to have a replica in every zone, was what I would argue. I wouldn't argue that you need one for every 30 machines or anything. What I was meaning by that was like, I look at it as a small environment, so. Yeah, very possibly. If you have multiple areas where you have like multiple zones in multiple countries, you might want to have one in each of those zones. The nice thing about it is when you do discovery with client, which I'll show you in a minute, it actually looks for the localest one it can find and actually registers with that one. So, and then it has some SRV records that it looks up. So you can actually not worry about where you are. It'll look for the SRV records and properly find the Kerberos server, properly find the LDAP server, all of that. Am I close? Oh, I think I'm close. This is going to get exciting right here. Sorry, what? No DNSSEC yet. I don't know about 4, though. I have to ask. Oh, we didn't quite get there. That was disappointing. Oh, look. I think we're there. Let's have a look at it. It's restarting the web server, and this should just work here in a moment. Yay! And look, there's your ports. So if you're interested in the ports, there they are. Let's open up a browser and have a look around. This is really important that we do it because I think if you don't see what that looks like before you start, so I should be able to go to HTTPS, if I can type, IPA7, and I might have to this in my DNS at example.com. Yeah, hold on one second. Successfully make it work, you should be able to then resolve things, and I think that should work. There it goes. Did it fail again? No, it's still loading. Oh, bad. Did I do it wrong? Oh, let's see here. IPA7.example. I know I'm close. Okay, hold on. All time. Let's do the firewall because that's a really good idea. We're running CentOS 7, so we're going to just grab this little command right here. Now you can do it the long way if you like. This is the short way. So for every service, I'm just going to enable it. Now you can just do like iptables-F if you want to just test with it. Don't do that in production. Let's try it again. I bet money that was my problem all along. Oh look, it kind of works now. And I can get in there. Here's my identity manager. Browse me able to log in because I haven't actually set up any Kerberos configuration yet. You do need to set up a krb5.conf on your machines if you're going to authenticate against this, or you have to log in like that. So for now, we'll just log in. My username is admin, and my password is IPAadmin72, right? I said that earlier? Okay, everyone was listening. Good. Well, at least one person. And here we go. There's our IPA server. Woo! Everybody happy? Okay, and end of the presentation. Have a nice day. All right, I'll click on a tab in just a moment. You had a question. Yeah, it's like replication essentially, but it's called a trusted audit. I did not personally do that. I did it for another a person, and they did most of the work, and they knew Active Directory way better than I do. So I don't have a lot of experience with that. They said it worked well, though. It was fast. There is a FreeIPA channel on Freenode, and they have done it too. And there's a lot of people like Simo and Rob Crittenden are great guys, and they are really helpful. I've spent weeks and hours on there, weeks and months and years, well, maybe not years, but weeks and weeks and weeks and months, talking to them and asking them questions about things like that. I've done a Samba share though, which is really cool with Kerberos authentication, and it was really slick. Let's have a look at our system here. So we have one single user, admin. Should probably add some more users, right? So we'll do that in a minute. Everyone should be admin, I think, so that's a good idea. So we'll do that too. You get groups, you get like admins, editors, IPA admins, and then you have IPA users, which is everybody's in that group. So that's like the everybody group. If you want to use the non-UPG mechanism, you can do that. There's hosts, which we can create. Yeah, we can actually set up trust admins in lots of ways. So trust admins is like just a generic group that they give you, but it doesn't actually have sudoers in it at all yet. We'll create a sudoers rule in a few minutes. You can replicate them in, yes. Yeah, you can do the trusted thing, and then it'll pull them in, and they replicate back and forth, absolutely, and from Active Directory. Yeah. Not all the variables from AD come in, but a good portion of the ones that are applicable to your Linux systems. And like the Unix extension that you have for that's what really it gives you, is that functionality. Let's look at a couple other things in here. So we have our identity, our policy, right? Here's HBAC rules, here's sudo rules, auto mount, password. Anything else you want to look at. SE Linux stuff is actually supported in here. So you don't have to manage SE Linux from your command system. You can do it from here for any extra rules that aren't in the core systems, which is really nice. Not that I know of. Cgrups is not currently supported, but I can't guarantee that. You can ask the guys on FreeIPA for sure. We also have other things we can do. So let's look at the configuration for a moment because I think it's really useful. We can come down in here and we can do certain things like, hey, for instance, what if you had a new LDAP object class that you wanted to add? And in some cases, you're going to want this. You're going to want your users to have another object class. So you enable it in here. You may have to add the schema to the IPA servers, but that's about it. And then you go in here and you turn it on, and it works. And I use mail group for groups, and I use I don't remember which one of the user ones I use, but I use a couple. So we have a couple custom ones as well. They're not crazy, or anything. They're just basic, but they work. You can also set your options, like how long before the password expires, your shell, which I'm going to fix because it's broken here. binsh does not work. So these are like your etc settings, but for the global people, or for the IPA server. So you can do these things. Do I need to make it bigger for those of you in the back? Okay, we can probably make that work. There we go. So I can do other things like that. I've got user and group options for LDAP. Here's my SE Linux defaults. And that should be, yeah, that's it. And you can do like search size for LDAP and things like that. So let me save this. And you'll notice all the update stuff is near the top. And I didn't do IPA 4, by the way. This is 3.3, for those of you who are curious. All right, so let's go ahead and add a user. Oops, not a host group. That would be bad. I mean, you can do those, I guess. But so let's add a user. That's me. And let's get him authenticated. That's a really important thing. So let's start with that. So we're just going to put in a password. And yeah, I use password. Don't tell anyone. And we're going to go ahead and add and edit this user because I want to have a look at the user itself. So you can do lots of things. Pretty much any LDAP field you ever wanted was in here. You can add more, obviously. So there's my username, my password. I can reset the password here, which makes them forced to restart it. And every time you have like if you're doing 45-day expirations, you can enforce that through this as well. So when they log in the next time, it'll say you have to change your password. You can do it. It does it with Kerberos too, or they can do it right here on the web interface. So our password policy by default is 90 days. You can change that, obviously, and you should change it globally. I can add an SSH key, so let's do that. That's actually pretty important. I think we should do that one. So let's add an SSH key. So I'm going to grab my SSH key here. You guys got that memorized, right? Okay. Yeah, I don't care enough to tell you what it is, and hopefully you didn't pause the video too long to watch that later. Let's go ahead and update that. So it should actually say new key set right there, and when I click update here, it will actually give me the key fingerprint, and that's how you know it's set. Let me try logging in now. So I'm going to go over here to my server, or to my system, and I'm going to type ssh ipa7.example.com, right? Sure. Oh, look, didn't work. Awesome. Why did it not work? Oh, I know why. There's one more thing I have to do on the systems, and I don't know why I have to do this. It's always one more thing. We want to run this off config thing, and I'm actually going to reboot as well just to ensure that it's working, but because I didn't do that before. And yes, I should probably be using the the system control stuff, but I already have this here. So, and John wants me to use what was it, John? Systemctl shutdown. Oh, and we don't need to do that. Let's do it the right way now. It's already rebooted. Yeah, see, there it is. And I didn't do it right again, but let's see if it works this time. Come on. You know you want to. It's not going to work. I don't need to be candid. I have an SSH key.